The debris field stretched for miles, spinning wreckage, catching starlight like broken glass. David Reed maneuvered his salvage hauler through the mess, scanning for anything valuable. 3 days without a decent haul meant 3 days closer to bankruptcy. His hands moved across the controls with practiced ease, eyes tracking the scanner readouts. Something pinged on his sensors. A cargo pod, intact and drifting. David felt that familiar flutter of hope mixed with caution. Intact pods usually meant two things: either something worth taking, or something illegal enough that whoever lost it would come looking. That he decided to risk it. The retrieval arm pulled the pod into his cargo bay. David sealed his helmet and went down to inspect his find. The pod was unmarked, which already told him this wasn't legitimate cargo. He popped the locks, and the door hissed open. Pelts. Dozens of exotic animal pelts, each worth a small fortune on the black market. David's stomach turned. He hated poachers. His hand hovered over the comm to report the find to authorities, but then he heard it, a weak chirping sound, barely audible. David pushed deeper into the pod, moving pelts aside. In the back corner, hidden behind false panels, he found a small creature. It looked like a scaled cat, no bigger than his forearm. Blood matted its silver scales. The creature's eyes were barely open, its breathing shallow. Recognition hit him like a punch. He had seen pictures of these creatures in wildlife databases. A Ravian cub. The species was protected across 12 sectors. Trading them meant execution. Owning one meant life in prison. The cub chirped again, weaker this time. David thought about his daughter, about how she had looked in those final days, fever burning through her small body while he sat helpless beside her bed. The colony plague had taken her 5 years ago. He had held her hand and watched her slip away, unable to do anything. He could do something now. David scooped up the cub, careful of its wounds. It was so light, so fragile. He carried it to his medical bay, such as it was. The supplies were meant for humans, but biology was biology. He cleaned the wounds, gave it fluids through and for, wrapped it in thermal blankets. The cub's eyes opened fully for the first time. They were deep gold, intelligent and aware. It looked at David, and something passed between them. Recognition. Trust. "You're going to be okay," David whispered. "I've got you." He named her Beast because she would grow into one. Ravians were apex predators, the top of the food chain on their homeworld. They could grow to the size of a small shuttle. Their bite could pierce starship hull plating. Entire military units had been deployed to capture rogue Ravians, and David had just adopted one. The next few weeks passed in a blur. Beast recovered quickly, her natural healing abilities impressive. She followed David everywhere, chirping and clicking. She learned to understand his voice, his gestures. When he worked on repairs, she sat nearby and watched. When he slept, she curled up at the foot of his bunk. She grew fast. Within a month, she was the size of a large dog. Her scales hardened, turning from soft silver to armored steel gray. Her claws extended, her teeth sharpened into points that could tear metal. But with David, she was gentle. The first time she saved his life was during a routine fuel line repair. David was working in the engine room when a coupling failed. Superheated coolant sprayed across the chamber. He dove for cover, but slipped on the deck plates. The scalding liquid would have hit him directly. Beast moved faster than he could see. She grabbed him by his jacket and dragged him behind a bulkhead. The coolant sprayed where he had been standing, melting deck plates into slag. Beast held him down until the emergency systems kicked in and sealed the breach. David lay there, breathing hard, staring at the cub who had just saved his life. Beast licked his face, her rough tongue scraping across his cheek. Her eyes held concern, fear for him. "Thank you," he managed. "Good girl. You're such a good girl." Beast rumbled, a sound that would become her version of a purr. But their luck could not hold forever. During a supply run to a small station, a customs inspector decided to do a random search. David tried to keep calm, tried to act normal. Beast was hidden in a storage compartment, but she could sense his stress. The inspector was thorough, too thorough. He opened compartments David had marked as off-limits. He moved toward the storage area where Beast waited. David's heart hammered. If the inspector found Beast, they were both finished. He would be arrested, Beast would be taken away. She would probably be killed as evidence. The inspector reached for the storage compartment lock. A low growl echoed through the cargo bay. Beast emerged from behind a stack of supply crates, where she had somehow slipped free. She placed herself between David and the inspector, her head low, her teeth visible. She was bigger than the inspector now, all muscle and scales and predator instinct. The inspector stumbled backward, hand going for his sidearm. "No," David shouted, stepping between them. "Don't move. Please, just don't move." He turned to Beast, holding up his hands. "Easy, girl. Easy. He's not going to hurt us. Stand down." Beast's eyes flicked between David and the threat. Every muscle in her body was coiled to spring. But she trusted David. Slowly, reluctantly, she backed down. The inspector stared in shock. "Is that? How did you?" David didn't answer. He just started the undocking sequence, hoping the inspector was too scared to report what he saw. They left the station fast, jumping to hyperspace the moment they cleared the traffic lanes in the cockpit. Beast pressed her massive head against David's shoulder. He scratched behind her ear ridges, feeling her relax. "We can't go back," he said quietly. "You know that, right? We're outlaws now. Both of us." Beast rumbled her agreement. They flew toward the frontier, toward the lawless zones where questions were not asked. David looked at the Beast beside him and felt no regret. He had saved her life. She had saved his. That was enough. That was everything. 6 months in the frontier zones had changed everything. David's ship, once a legitimate salvage hauler, now bore scars from a dozen close calls. Beast had grown into her name. She stood nearly 8 feet at the shoulder now, her scales thick as armor plating. When she moved through the ship's corridors, her claws left scratches on the deck. Other salvagers gave them a wide berth. Word had spread about the human who flew with a Ravian. Most people thought David was crazy. Some thought he had a death wish. Nobody understood the truth. The salvage job today was simple enough. A derelict freighter floating in neutral space, possibly carrying valuable tech. David brought his ship alongside and began scanning. Bee sat in the co-pilot's seat, her massive bulk somehow fitting in the space. She watched the scanner displays with interest, learning to read them the way David did. "Looks clean," David said. "No power signatures, no life signs. Should be easy." Beast made a sound that David had learned meant disagreement. She stared at the derelict, her nostrils flaring. "You smell something." A rumbling growl answered him. David trusted her instincts. He armed the ship's weapons, what few he had. They approached more carefully. The airlock connection sealed, and David suited up. Beast did not need a suit. Her species could survive hard vacuum for short periods. They entered the derelict together. The interior was dark and cold. David's helmet light cut through the blackness. Beast moved ahead, her eyes seeing clearly in the darkness. Her body language screamed caution. They found a cargo bay. It was full of salvage, just as the scan indicated. Medical equipment, ship components, things worth good money. But Beast was still agitated. Then David heard voices. Multiple people moving through the ship toward their position. Pirates. The derelict was bait, a trap for salvagers like him. "Beast, back to the ship," David ordered, but it was too late. 6 men entered the cargo bay, weapons drawn. They wore mismatched armor and carried military-grade rifles. The leader, a scarred man with cybernetic eyes, smiled. Well, heard rumors about you. The Beast Rider, they call you. Thought it was just talk." David kept his hands visible, non-threatening. "The salvage is yours. We'll leave." "Oh, I don't think so. Your ship is worth more than this junk." And that creature, the pirate leader, licked his lips. Rich collectors would pay millions for a live Ravian. Beast stepped forward, placing herself between David and the pirates. Her lips pulled back from her teeth. The sound she made was nothing like her gentle rumbles. This was a predator's challenge, a promise of violence. The pirates hesitated. Even armed, even with numbers on their side, they felt the fear. Beast was death given form, and she was angry. "Stand down," the pirate leader shouted. "It's just an animal. Shoot it." The pirates raised their weapons. David's hand went to his sidearm. knowing it would not be enough. Beast coiled to spring, ready to tear through them all. Stop! David's voice cut through the tension. Nobody has to die here. Beast paused, waiting for his command. The pirates kept their weapons trained on her. David spoke carefully, keeping his voice calm. You're right. She's just an animal. But she's my animal, and she does what I tell her. You shoot. She'll kill you all before you can finish her. Some of you will die. Maybe all of you. The pirate leader's finger tightened on the trigger. So what do you suggest? Let's walk away. Keep the salvage. Nobody dies, and you don't have to explain to your crew families why they're not coming home. Silence stretched. David could feel Beast's muscles trembling with restrained violence. She wanted to attack. Every instinct told her to eliminate the threat. But she trusted David, so she waited. The pirate leader finally lowered his weapon. Get out. Take your monster and get out. David backed toward the exit, Beast moving with him. They kept eye contact with the pirates until they reached the airlock. Once aboard David's ship, they disconnected and burned hard away from the derelict. Inside the cockpit, David's hands shook with released adrenaline. Beast pressed against him, making worried sounds. She could sense his fear, even after the danger had passed. It's okay, girl. You did good. You did exactly right. But the encounter had consequences. Within days, the story spread through every frontier station and outpost. The Beast Rider had faced down 6 armed pirates without firing a shot. He controlled a full-grown Ravian with just his voice. Some versions said he could speak to animals. Others said he had psychic powers. Job offers started coming in. Colonies facing raider problems. Mining operations being extorted by criminals. Places where the authorities could not or would not help. They wanted the Beast Rider's protection. David took the first job because the money was good. A small mining colony, barely 200 people, harassed by a gang that stole their supplies and equipment. The local security force was 3 old men with outdated rifles. David and Beast arrived at night. They set up positions around the colony's supply depot, the gang's usual target. Beast hid in the shadows, nearly invisible despite her size. David waited on a rooftop with a rifle. The gang came just after midnight. 12 of them, armed and confident. They had raided this colony a dozen times before. Easy money. Beast hit them from behind, moving like a shadow come to life. She bowled over 3 men before they knew she was there. The others spun, firing wildly into the darkness. They could not see her, but they could hear her. That terrible growl, coming from everywhere at once. David's voice cut through their panic. Drop your weapons and run. This is your only chance. The gang leader tried to rally his men, tried to organize a defense. Then Beast stepped into the light. All 8 feet of armored death, her claws extended, her teeth visible in the moonlight. Blood from the first 3 attackers dripped from her jaws. The gang broke and ran. Some dropped their weapons. Others kept them, but never looked back. Beast started to give chase. Let them go, David called. They learned their lesson. Beast returned to his side, rumbling with satisfaction. The colony was safe. Word would spread. This colony was under the Beast Rider's protection now. The colonists emerged, cheering and celebrating. Children approached carefully, wanting to see Beast up close. She lowered her head, allowing them to touch her scales. So gentle with the innocent, so terrible to threats. David watched and understood something important. They had found their purpose. Not salvage, not running. Protection. Making the frontier safer for people who could not protect themselves. Beast looked at him, those golden eyes holding intelligence and trust. Yeah, girl, David said quietly. I think we found our calling. The Galactic Council investigator arrived without warning. David was helping repair a water filtration system when a sleek government ship touched down at the colony's landing pad. A man in an immaculate uniform stepped out, flanked by 2 security officers. Rendell was his name. He carried himself like someone who had never been told no. His credentials were legitimate, his authority absolute. He had come to investigate reports of a human illegally possessing a protected species. David wiped grease from his hands and met him at the landing pad. Beast was nearby, her presence impossible to ignore. She was bigger now, nearly shuttle-sized, her scales gleaming in the afternoon sun. David Reed, Rendell said, consulting a datapad. You are in violation of Protected Species Act, Sections 4 through 12. The penalty is life imprisonment. The creature will be confiscated and relocated to a proper sanctuary. The colonists had gathered, worried and angry. An old woman named Ruth, the colony administrator, stepped forward. That beast and her human saved our lives. The gang was going to kill us. Rendell barely glanced at her. Irrelevant. The law is clear. Ravians are protected. Human contact is prohibited. Beast growled, sensing the threat. David placed a hand on her scales, calming her. She's not my prisoner. She's my partner. My family. Animals cannot consent to such relationships. You clearly have her conditioned through food or fear. Rendell gestured to his security officers. We will take her now. The security officers approached with tranquilizer rifles. Beast's growl deepened, became a sound that vibrated through the ground. The officers stopped, their training fighting their instincts. David stepped between them and Beast. Don't. Please. She'll defend herself, and people will die. Then restrain her, or we will do it by force. Before anyone could move, alarms blared across the colony. Every comm unit activated simultaneously. A distress signal, automated and desperate. A passenger liner, the Horizon's Dream, under attack in nearby space. Over 400 people aboard. Hive drones had breached the hull that Rendell's security officers immediately moved toward their ship. We need to respond. Rendell checked his datapad, his face grim. Nearest military response is 2 hours away. The liner will be overrun by then. David was already running toward his ship. Beast followed, her massive body moving with surprising speed. Rendell shouted after them, demanding they stop, but David ignored him. Inside his ship, David began the launch sequence. Beast settled into her position in the cargo bay, the space modified to accommodate her size. Through the cockpit window, David saw Rendell arguing with his officers. Then, unexpectedly, Rendell ran toward David's ship. He climbed aboard just before the ramp sealed. What are you doing? David demanded. My duty. Those people need help. Rendell strapped into his seat, his face pale but determined. I'm also here to witness your inevitable death, so I can tell the council that the Ravian problem solved itself. David did not waste time arguing. The ship lifted off and punched through the atmosphere. Beast roared her readiness, the sound echoing through the hull. The liner appeared on sensors, surrounded by a cloud of hive drones. The insectoid creatures swarmed over its hull like flies on dead meat. Sections of the liner were already dark, atmosphere venting into space. Rendell stared at the tactical display. This is suicide. One ship against thousands of drones. We fought worse. David said simply that he brought the ship in close, weapons firing to clear a path. The drones were individually weak, but numerous. They attacked in coordination, thinking as a single organism. David's shields flared under their assault. Beast, you ready? David called, but a roar answered him. The cargo bay doors opened, exposing her to vacuum. Beast species had evolved for hunting in space, their bodies capable of surviving without air for hours. She launched herself toward the liner, claws finding purchase on its hull. Rendell watched in stunned silence as Beast tore through drone clusters, her movements graceful despite the zero gravity. She breached the liner's hull and disappeared inside. David coordinated from his ship, tracking Beast's progress through sensor data. Cargo Bay 7. Survivors trapped. Go left at the junction. Beast understood. She moved through the dying ship with purpose, clearing paths through the drones. Survivors evacuated behind her, following the trail of safety she created. David maneuvered his ship to provide cover fire, destroying drones that tried to swarm the escape pods. How is this possible? Rendell whispered. No creature should be able to coordinate like this. She's not just a creature. She's my partner. We understand each other. The real threat was deeper in the ship. The Hive Queen directing her swarm. If she escaped, she would establish a colony and doom the entire sector. Beast tracked her by scent alone, following pheromone trails through the wreckage. David saw it on his sensors. Beast was heading into the engine room, where drone concentrations were highest. She would be surrounded, outnumbered 100 to 1. Beast, fall back. It's too many. She did not listen. The queen had to die, and Beast knew it. She pushed forward into the swarm. David made a desperate choice. He aimed his ship at the liner's hull, where Beast was fighting. Full thrust, no hesitation. The impact was tremendous, shaking his ship to its core. Metal screamed. Alarms wailed. But the collision scattered the swarm, gave Beast an opening. She reached the queen. The fight lasted seconds. The queen was large and protected, but Beast was rage given form. When it was over, the queen lay dead and the swarm lost cohesion. Get out of there, David shouted. Beast grabbed a maintenance cable and swung back toward his ship. David caught her with the cargo bay doors, pulling her inside just as the liner's core went critical. They burned away at maximum thrust, escaping the explosion by seconds. In the cockpit, silence. Rindle sat frozen, processing what he had witnessed. All 437 survivors had been evacuated. Every single one, thanks to the human and his beast. I need to revise my report, Rindle said quietly. David did not answer. He was already heading to the cargo bay, where Beast waited. She was wounded, bleeding from dozens of small cuts. David treated each one carefully, his hands gentle despite their shaking. You scared me, girl. Don't do that again. Beast rumbled, pressing her massive head against his chest. They had saved everyone. That was what mattered. Rindle appeared in the doorway, watching them. His expression had changed, the certainty replaced by doubt. The council needs to hear about this. About what you've done. Will they care? David asked bitterly. They will, because I'll make them care. Rindle's report changed everything. The Galactic Council debated for 3 days before issuing their decision. Full pardons for both David and Beast. More than that, official recognition as independent contractors. Survivor testimonies had been overwhelming. 437 people owed their lives to a human and a Ravian working together. The galaxy took notice. News services ran the story constantly. Images of Beast tearing through hive drones while David coordinated the rescue became iconic. Some called them heroes. Others called them dangerous. Everyone called them effective. Admiral Stone contacted David a week after the pardons came through. The military officer's message was brief but intriguing. A colony world had gone dark. Haven's Point, population 8,000, mostly agricultural workers and families. Last transmission mentioned things coming from below. Military suspected hive infestation, but could not risk a full deployment without confirmation. Stone needed scouts. People who could handle themselves against impossible odds. People who were already legends for fighting hives. David accepted the contract. Beast sensed his tension and stayed close as they traveled toward Haven's Point. The journey took 4 days. Beast spent the time sleeping and eating, building up her strength. She knew danger was coming. Her instincts were never wrong. Haven's Point appeared on their sensors, quiet and dark. No lights on the surface. No communication signals. No ship traffic. The planet looked dead. They landed on the colony's outskirts, near the main settlement. David wore full combat gear, weapons loaded and ready. Beast moved ahead, her nostrils flaring as she tasted the air. Her body language screamed warning. The colony was intact, but empty. Houses stood undamaged. Equipment was still running. Food sat on tables, partially eaten, but no people. Not a single living soul. It's like they all just vanished, David muttered into his comm, recording observations for Stone. Beast led him toward the colony center, following some scent trail David could not detect. They found the entrance to the mining tunnels, large doors standing open. Darkness waited beyond. David activated his helmet lights, and they descended into the tunnels. The temperature dropped immediately. The walls were rough-cut stone, marked with tool scars and blast patterns. Mining equipment sat abandoned in side passages. Then they found the webbing. Not like hive webbing, which was sticky and organic. This was different, silk-like and strong. It covered walls and ceilings in thick sheets. Not hives, David reported. Something else. Beast's growl echoed through the tunnel. She had found something. David followed her to a side chamber where colonists hung in cocoons, dozens of them. They were alive, but unconscious, their bodies wrapped in silk that kept them sedated. David cut one free, an older man who groaned as he woke. What happened? Burrow hunters, the man gasped. They came from the deep tunnels. We thought they were extinct. They took us. All of us. David knew the species from old military briefings. Pack predators, intelligent and strategic. They did not kill their prey immediately. They stored them, kept them alive for later consumption. The situation had just become much worse than a hive infestation. Beast suddenly spun, facing the tunnel entrance. Her muscles coiled. David brought his rifle up just as shapes emerged from the darkness. Burrow hunters, 4 of them, each the size of a large bear. Their bodies were covered in thick fur and chitin plates. Multiple eyes glinted in David's helmet light. Their mouths were full of curved fangs designed for tearing flesh. David fired, his rifle rounds sparking off their armored hides. Beast charged, meeting them head-on. The fight was brutal and fast. These creatures had evolved for tunnel combat. They attacked from multiple angles, using the confined space to their advantage. Beast's size was now a disadvantage. She could not maneuver easily in the narrow tunnel. One hunter got behind her, claws raking across her flank. Beast roared in pain and fury, spinning to eliminate the threat. David threw an explosive charge deeper into the tunnel and detonated it. The blast collapsed part of the ceiling, cutting off hunter reinforcements. But it also trapped them on the wrong side with survivors they could not abandon. More hunters emerged from side passages. They had been waiting, planning. These were not mindless monsters. They were intelligent pack hunters who had chosen this ambush point carefully. We have to go up, David shouted, that he and Beast began fighting their way toward the surface, the freed colonists staying close behind them. Other survivors woke from their cocoons and joined the retreat. Slowly, desperately, they pushed upward through 3 kilometers of tunnels that a collapse separated David from the main group. He found himself alone in a side tunnel, cut off from Beast and the survivors. Hunter clicks echoed through the darkness, coming from all directions. They had him surrounded. David checked his ammunition. Almost empty. He had a few explosive charges left, but using them would bring the whole tunnel down on his head. Through the rock, he could hear Beast roaring, trying to reach him. Go, he shouted, though he knew she could not hear words through stone. Get them to safety. Go. But Beast did not go. David heard her tearing at the collapse, trying to dig through. The hunters were getting closer, their clicks becoming a hunting rhythm. David prepared himself for a last stand. Then Beast's roar shook the tunnel. Not from behind a collapse, but from ahead. She had found another passage, circled around. She exploded into the tunnel like a force of nature, scattering the hunters. You came back, David breathed. Beast positioned herself beside him, her meaning clear. They would fight together or die together. There was no other option. Something changed in David then. They had been running, retreating, trying to survive. But that was not who they were. They were hunters, protectors, and these creatures had hurt innocent people. New plan, David said. We don't run anymore. We hunt. Beast's roar of agreement made the tunnel walls shake. They pushed forward instead of back, becoming the predators instead of prey. The hunters had never faced anything like them. A human who thought 3 steps ahead, and a Ravian who fought with controlled fury. Together, they were unstoppable. They found a nest deep in the tunnels, where the queen waited with her guard pack. The fight was vicious. David exhausted his ammunition and switched to mining tools. Beast's wounds accumulated, but she did not stop. Could not stop. The queen fell. Her death scream echoed through the tunnels. The pack lost coordination, began to flee. David and Beast emerged into daylight hours later, covered in blood and dirt. Military dropships were landing, full rescue teams deployed. Rindle was among them, coordinating the operation. All 8,000 colonists were recovered alive. Medical teams rushed to help Beast, who finally allowed herself to collapse. David refused treatment until she was stable, sitting beside her and holding her massive head. Admiral Stone arrived personally, surveying the aftermath with an experienced eye. The council pardoned you, but I have a different offer. Military contract, impossible missions, full support. David looked at Beast, who was already healing. What kind of missions? Stone smiled grimly. The kind where we need people who don't quit when facing death. 6 months under military contract transformed them into something beyond outlaws or heroes. David and Beast operated in the gray spaces where official forces could not go. Hostage situations in contested territories. First contact with aggressive species. Reconnaissance missions that others called suicide runs. They took the impossible jobs and made them look routine. Their ship bore new scars and new upgrades. Military-grade shields, enhanced weapons systems, and a cargo bay modified specifically for Beast's needs. But it was still their home, still the place where they were just David and Beast, not legends or contractors. The missions blurred together. A research team trapped on a contested moon, rescued under heavy fire. A weapons smuggling operation broken up in an asteroid field. Each mission proved their reputation was earned, not exaggerated. They worked in perfect synchronization, David's strategic thinking combined with Beast's raw power and predator instincts. But their biggest mission yet came from Admiral Stone himself, delivered in person aboard his flagship. A diplomatic delegation was held hostage by the Tauran Confederacy. 12 ambassadors from various species, taken during peace negotiations. The Tauran were a warrior culture who respected only strength. Previous rescue attempts had failed. Military assault would trigger executions. Stone stood in David's cargo bay, watching Beast sharpen her claws against a metal beam. Standard approaches have failed. The Tauran view negotiation as weakness. But they have one cultural law they never break. Trial by combat. Defeat their champions. Earn the right to your demand. David understood immediately. You want us to walk into their fortress and challenge them. It's insane, Stone admitted. But so is everything else you've done. The Tauran respect apex predators. They might actually honor combat with a Ravian. Beast rumbled, her attention focused on Stone. She understood enough to know this would be dangerous. What happens if we lose? David asked. The hostages die. UD. And the Tauran become more bold in their aggression. Stone met David's eyes. I wouldn't ask if I had any other option. David looked at Beast. She returned his gaze steadily, trust absolute. They had faced hives and burrow hunters. They had survived when survival seemed impossible. This was just another mission. We'll do it. The Tauran fortress was an ancient structure carved from a mountain on their homeworld. Thousands of warriors called it home. David's ship landed in their main courtyard, surrounded by soldiers carrying traditional weapons and modern rifles. They were allowed to land only because Beast species was known to the Tauran. Respected, David and Beast walked down the ramp together. The Tauran warriors formed a corridor, watching with professional interest. These were not frightened civilians. These were fighters who had trained their entire lives for combat. Warlord Kreth met them in his throne room. He was massive, even for his species, covered in scars and tribal markings. His eyes studied Beast with appreciation and David with curiosity. A human and a Ravian, Kreth said in heavily accented but clear language. Tales of you have reached even our worlds. They say you are bonded, that you fight as one. We are, David confirmed. I'm here for the hostages. They are mine by right of conquest. Kreth leaned forward, interested. But I offer you trial by combat. You and your Beast against my champion pack. 6 warriors, bred and trained for war since birth. Win, and I release the hostages with honor. Lose, and you die with them. Beast growled, but it was not aggressive. She was sizing up the opposition, calculating. David added his own terms. No letal combat. First to submit or fall unconscious loses. We're not here to kill your warriors. Kreth laughed, a booming sound. Brave words. Or foolish. We accept your terms. My warriors will show the same mercy, if you can earn it. The arena was ancient stone, worn smooth by countless battles. Thousands of Tauran watched from surrounding galleries. The hostages were brought to observe, bound but unharmed. David caught their desperate, hopeful faces .6 Tauran champions entered the arena. Each carried traditional weapons, blades, clubs, spears. Their bodies were pure muscle and combat training. They moved like professional fighters, coordinated and confident. David drew no weapons. He and Beast had discussed strategy during the flight. Weapons would break. Technology could fail. But their bond, their understanding, that was unbreakable. The battle began without ceremony. The Tauran champions attacked in practice formation, 3 engaging Beast while 3 moved toward David. They had fought Ravians before, knew their tactics, but they had never fought Beast and David together. Beast did not fight like a wild animal. She fought with discipline, using her size and strength precisely. When David called directions, she responded instantly. When he was threatened, she was there. They moved like parts of a single organism. David used the arena's features, the environment itself becoming a weapon. He led 2 warriors into a position where Beast could drive them back. When Beast was momentarily pinned, David created an opening with a desperate tackle. The fight lasted minutes but felt like hours. David took several hard hits, feeling ribs crack. Beast accumulated wounds, her scales scratched and dented. But they did not stop, could not stop. The turning point came when David went down hard, a Tauran warrior's club catching him across the temple. He dropped, consciousness flickering. Through blurred vision, he saw the warrior raising his weapon for a finishing blow. Beast was there instantly, placing herself over David's body. She faced all 6 warriors alone, daring them to reach him. Her stance said everything. They would have to kill her first. The Tauran warriors paused. They recognized something in that moment. True pack loyalty. The kind of bond their own culture valued above all else. They had come to test strength, but found something more impressive. David recovered, his head clearing. He stood slowly, Beast never leaving his side. Together, they faced the remaining champions. The Tauran came at them again, but something had changed. They were fighting with respect now, not contempt. The last warrior fell when Beast swept his legs while David disarmed him. The arena fell silent. Then Kreth stood, his voice booming across the space. "Worthy, you have proven yourselves warriors of honor." The hostages were released immediately. Kreth himself saw them to David's ship, treating them with respect. As David prepared to leave, Kreth approached Beast, speaking in his own language. Beast rumbled in response, some understanding passing between warriors. "What did he say?" David asked. Kreth smiled. "I told her she brings honor to her species, and I offered alliance. The Tauran respect strength, but we revere loyalty. You have shown us both." They departed with the hostages safe and a new ally gained. In the ship's cargo bay, David treated Beast's wounds while she treated his. They had survived another impossible mission. Admiral Stone's message was waiting when they reached communication range. More offers, more missions, more chances to prove themselves. David read them and looked at Beast. "What do you think, girl? Should we keep doing this?" Beast's answering rumble needed no translation. They were exactly where they belonged. News of the Tauran victory spread faster than wildfire through jump space. Within days, every species with communication technology knew the story. A human and a Ravian had walked into a warrior fortress, fought 6 champions, and walked out with hostages and an alliance. The impossible made real. Offers flooded in from every corner of known space. Mercenary groups wanted to hire them. Governments wanted to employ them. Criminal syndicates offered fortunes for their services. Political groups tried to claim them as symbols. Everyone wanted a piece of the legend. David and Beast turned them all down. They maintained their independence, working only with Admiral Stone and only on missions that mattered. Their criteria was simple. If innocent people needed help and no one else could provide it, they would go. Their reputation grew beyond their control. Children played games pretending to be the Beast Rider and his companion. Artists created sculptures and paintings. Writers composed songs about their exploits. Some stories were accurate. Many were exaggerated to the point of fantasy. David heard rumors that he could speak any language, that Beast could survive in hard vacuum indefinitely, that they had never lost a fight. The truth was simpler and more powerful. They were partners. They trusted each other completely. That bond made them effective in ways that technology and training never could. Beast had changed over the years since her rescue. She was fully grown now, as large as she would ever get. Scars marked her scales, each one a story. But with David, she remained as gentle as the day he first held her dying form. She would rest her massive head on his lap and rumble contentedly while he read reports or plotted courses. In quiet moments, she was not a weapon or a legend. She was just Beast, his companion and friend. David had changed too. The broken man who had lost his daughter and drifted through space looking for purpose had found it. He woke each day knowing his life mattered, that his choices saved people. The emptiness inside him had been filled not by forgetting his daughter, but by honoring her memory through action. Their latest mission took them to a frontier colony facing raider attacks. Nothing dramatic, just a group of criminals targeting a settlement of farmers and miners. Local security was overwhelmed. The colony had scraped together enough credits to hire help. David brought his ship down at sunset, Beast emerging from the cargo bay to stretch. Colonists approached cautiously, their faces showing awe and hope in equal measure. A young girl, maybe 8 years old, broke from her mother's grip and ran toward Beast. The mother screamed, terrified. The colony security chief reached for his weapon, but David raised his hand, stopping them. The girl approached Beast without fear, her small hand reaching up to touch the massive creature's scales. Beast lowered her head, allowing the contact. Her eyes were gentle, patient. "You're even bigger than the pictures," the girl said, wonder in her voice. "Are you really going to protect us?" Beast rumbled softly, a sound that meant yes to those who knew her. The girl smiled and hugged Beast's foreleg, her arms not even reaching halfway around. Beast stayed perfectly still, careful not to accidentally hurt the child. Other children saw and approached, their fear overcome by curiosity. Soon Beast was surrounded by young colonists, all touching her scales and asking questions. David watched and felt something break inside him. Good break, like a dam releasing pressure. He had spent years protecting his heart after losing his daughter, afraid to care too much. But looking at Beast with these children, he understood something important. Love was not a limited resource. Opening your heart did not diminish what came before. It honored it. That night, they dealt with the raiders quickly and efficiently. Beast scared most of them into surrender with just her appearance. The few who tried to fight learned the hard way that legends were often based on truth. By morning, the raiders were restrained and the colony was safe. The colony administrator tried to pay David the agreed-upon fee. He took only enough to cover fuel and supplies, returning the rest. Use it to build better defenses. We don't do this for money. Then why do you do it? The administrator asked. David looked at Beast, who was allowing more children to climb on her back. Because we can. Because people need help. Because it's right. They departed that afternoon, heading toward their next mission. Another colony, another problem, another chance to make a difference. The work was endless. The galaxy was huge and full of people who needed protection. In the cargo bay, Beast settled into her space while David plotted their course. The ship hummed around them, familiar and comfortable. This was home, not a place, but a presence. Wherever they went together, they were home. "You know what's funny, girl?" David said, scratching behind Beast's ear ridges. "Everyone calls us the most feared duo in space. But I think we're also the most trusted. People see you and they're scared. But then they see us together and they hope. Hope that someone is watching out for them." Beast rumbled her agreement, her head resting on his shoulder. The message came through from Admiral Stone. Another mission, another impossible situation. A diplomatic convoy attacked. A research station gone silent. A colony reporting strange activity. David read through the options, considering. "Which one do you think?" he asked Beast. She nudged the screen with her snout, pointing to the research station. Scientists trapped and needing rescue. It was an easy choice. David filed their response and set the course. Beast returned to her resting place, closing her eyes. She trusted David to get them where they needed to go. He trusted her to handle whatever they found when they arrived. That mutual trust built over years of shared danger and survival, was their greatest strength. The ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying them toward the next mission. Behind them, they left grateful colonists and defeated raiders. Ahead of them, more people who needed help. The galaxy was vast and often dangerous, but it was slightly safer because a freight hauler had once chosen compassion over law, and a beast cub had chosen a human over her own kind. They were the most feared duo in space. They were also the most loved. They were proof that bonds could transcend species, that trust could survive any test, that two beings working together could accomplish the impossible. They were David and Beast. They were partners. They were family. They were legend. And they were exactly where they belonged.